but it's silhouetted, hulking, every bit of 5.5 feet wide, 13 to 14 foot tall, pitch black.
The one thing that ran through my mind when I had this encounter was I don't have a big enough gun.
Your host, two-time witness and field researcher for more than 40 years, William Jevning. Welcome to Creek Devil.
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Creek Devil. We have two special guests today, Bill and Chris in Tennessee. Fellas, how are you doing today?
Doing good, Will.
I'm doing great.
Everyone usually, we do the two segments. We have the interview, and then the second segment is a Q&A or a general discussion combination. We're going to just keep right on going, today to combine both those segments with this particular show. So instead of a break at the hour, we're just going to continue on. So, Chris, you're going to give us an update. So I'm going to hand the microphone to you, buddy.
All right. I've got about four encounters that I've had so far. Well, I haven't had them. The people that I went to that contacted me had them. Two of them was over sweet feed. One of them was over a freezer, or two of them was over a freezer. What they had going on was they had their sweet feed set out in a barn, and this is probably about 3 miles from where I live. And they were just coming and raising cane at their barn, scaring their horses, and they would come up to the people's houses and bang on their trailer, and one of them even threw a rock and hit their car and busted one of the windows out. So that's what I've been having going on here with the sweet feed. What they had, they just had it in an old barrel, and they didn't even have it covered. It was setting in the barn so they could come in and grab it, whatever they wanted to. They said that they saw two of them, and both of them was over one of them was 6 foot, they said, and the other one was about 7 foot. And what they were doing was they was coming and swimming across the river from the sluice in the river, and coming up to the property. Said they would come in right at dusk and start raising cane and stuff, and they'd terrorize them up to about 6 in the morning. So what we done was put up a lot of those motion lights, and that's so far that's calmed them down. And the ones in the freezer, with all this virus and stuff going around right now, people they've been buying their meat and stocking it up best they can anyway. And so what they had, one guy had, he had a deep freezer, and then he had a regular freezer, and he had a hasp on it, but he didn't put a lock on it. He just put a bolt through it. And what they were doing was coming up, slipping inside his little meat house there. He didn't have a door on it or anything. They just slip in there and take the bolt out and take what they wanted and left. And they was even reaching in the deep freezer. They figured out how to open the deep freezer and was stealing meat that way. And they were pretty much terrorizing him too. One of them, what one of them would do, he told me that actually there was 3 of them. One of them was a juvenile. He said that he was probably about 4 to 5 foot tall. And one was about 7 foot tall, and the other one was, he said it was a monster. Said it was a big sucker. Said he'd say he probably went about 9 foot. But what they'd do is the juvenile would get out in the yard and get his attention while the other ones was robbing him blind. So that's what was going on there. And the next one that had the freezer problem, he made a mistake of leaving some fish out. He'd forgot to put it in his freezer, and he was probably about 3 miles from this guy that was having all this trouble with his, and so those that were stealing off of him, I'm sure it's what it was, because he said that it was a juvenile, probably about 4 foot tall, 4 or 5 foot tall. He said, and the other one was probably around 6 to 7 foot, but he never seen the big one. But he saw them sneaking into his little house there and taking what he done is he left the fish out, and that was just an open invitation, I reckon. So they would hit this guy down below him, and then they'd come up and hit him. And so that's what we done again. We hung lights and stuff, and so far it's helped. But I looked where they was coming through at, and the main road's right here in the woods in the National Forest. And then you got a field, then you got another patch of woods, then another road. It's just an off road, and then from that road, is the river. And what they were doing, you could see the path. The path they was taking, the path was real wide. I mean, it was, oh shoot, it was 3 or 4 foot wide. And the deer trails are, you can tell the difference between that and a deer trail. But anyway, I went down and looked at their trail. A friend of mine went with me, and we caught some a scent. I mean, it was a real ranky odor. So I figured we want to just been there. Didn't really hear anything, but we saw the trail, and the trail is perfect. I mean it is perfect from there all the way across the river. And so we went on the other side of the river to this guy's property and found the trail over there. So that's where they was coming through at. And probably back last month, first of last month, when all this stuff started, social distancing. Yeah, I can even say that. Social distancing. A lot of people from that was in town, they couldn't socialize there. So what they was doing, they was coming up here in National Forest. And me and Hunter had rode up there, just checking it out. Every place that you could find to pull off, there was somebody there. Horses left and right. I mean, we didn't even go all the way. I mean, that's how thick it was. And the game warden, I saw him coming down, and we just waved and everything. Come on down to the house, and probably right at dusk, dark, we found out that there was 2 hikers missing up there at the second set of falls. That's the same place that I go look all the time. And that's where that other guy was missing. And to this day, I don't reckon they found him yet. And I did get to speak to the game warden, because I rode up there a couple of days after that. And he told me, he said they were wearing bright colors, bright pink. And he said that, they said they've looked everywhere. They had the dogs up there. Said the dogs wouldn't, said the dogs would go so far, and said they'd turn tail and come back. And I know of several places up there that that's really, really spooky places, and there's a lot of activity way up in there. And if they've made it that far up in there, they probably won't ever find them. But and I've been. I've been off work for a while. I was sick there for a while, and I've been working on some lawnmowers. My dad's old lawnmower, he left me when he passed away. Been working on it, and it up there. It was several nights back. I was up there tinkering with it, and it got late. Of course, I had my barn light and stuff on, but it's still a good walk back to the house. And I heard something over to the left or to the right of me. Of course, I was playing music and stuff too, and I heard them turn the music down. I figured it might have been, a deer or something like that. And I had to come back to the house for something. I had to come back, get a hammer is what it was. I come back down here, and just when I stepped on the porch, I just glanced up there and caught the glimpse of one. It was about 7 foot tall, and there's another one with it. It was a juvenile, and I just got on the porch, and I thought I really don't want to go back up there, and so I just left the barn light and everything, air compressor and everything running that night. I didn't fool with it, and so I worked on it through the day, and then the very next night. I let it catch up with me again. The darkness was there. Of course, I had a flashlight with me this time, but I still had the barn lights and stuff on. And I must have made them mad or something, because they smacked the side of the barn, and when they smacked the side of the barn, I hurried up and unplugged the compressor and turned the lights out, and I just come back to the house. I said, crap on this, But we usually, during this time of the year, we usually have a lot of them start coming through this area because they use my ridge to go down, and they cross the road and they go down to the river, and of course they go over there, to the farms looking for sweet feed and stuff like that. Because right now, the berries ain't out or anything, so they're just pretty much scrounging for anything they can find. But that's about all I've had so far. I mean, I know it's quite a bit, but
Yeah, Chris, that is a lot. So you had one, you got on the porch, take a look, and there's one looking at you, a juvenile.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a question that I ask a lot, but I'm always kind of curious. Do you remember what color it was, or was it just a little too dark to make it out?
No, it was brown.
Okay.
It was brown.
Yeah.
The one.
And you had to leave your air compressor running all night?
Yeah, I left it running all night. It shuts off and on,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. The pressure drops and it kicks in.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, can I ask a question real quick? So,
Sure.
Yeah, there were reports of them, like you said, swimming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
That part of the river right through there, it's way over my head. It's got to be 20 foot deep right through there, and then they don't have to swim far over there before they can it's only like 5 foot there then, and then it is what it does is it steps down the deepness, so and yeah, shoot, they can swim, man.
Yeah. And the other question I had real quick is that the reports that you were talking about, they were only 3 miles apart. So were they the same creatures, or were
that's what I'm thinking, because I told the guy, the second guy that I went to where he left the fish out, he told me about the smaller one and the other one, and I told him, I said I told him about his neighbor about 3 miles up the road, and he said really? He said he didn't know. I said yeah, and I said but he said that he saw a really big one up there. So I told him, I said just be on the lookout for that.
Right. And how tall was the I guess the tallest one, if you will, like I guess the male, the alpha male, if you will. How tall was it?
He said it was anywhere from 8 to 9 foot tall. But I do know of one on up above. There's another farm up there. This one has been around for years. I mean years, because he was around when my papa was alive. And back then people said that he was anywhere from 9 to 10 foot tall. So I'm pretty sure this is the same one, because he said that he was a monster, and he said he looked like he was old. So he looked like he had gray hair on him. So I figure that's probably him.
Yeah, for sure. So the colors though were maybe different from the different accounts that you heard, or
no? They was the same color.
They're brown, like
brown.
Yeah.
One of them was brown, was splotchy black. The juvenile, this one was brown, and then that biggest one he said was gray looking.
Wow.
Yeah. And the guy that said that he had the juvenile there with the other one, he told me this. I hadn't spoke to him. I didn't tell him about the neighbor up there, and he told me he described the same color for both. So like I say, he didn't see the big one.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that they were like family units for all of these accounts? Like
yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because I have the biggest one, the gray one that he's talking about. Like I said, he's been seen for years. I mean, my cousin saw him, and several of my neighbors up through here have seen him, and me personally, I hadn't ever seen him, but I've heard the description of him, so I know that's pretty much him.
Mm-hmm. And for all these cases, were they more like? I know that you mentioned that they knocked on the house and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that they were trying to provoke you to action? I mean, did you ever get a sense that they were really threatening, or were they just trying to, out of curiosity, just kind of drive you away?
I believe that's more or less what it was. Is trying to drive away, so they could have so they could have their way with everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Really, I don't think they was aggressive. I mean, in a way, as where they would hurt you. I believe it's just more or less trying to say, "Hey, we're here. Get out of here."
Exactly, because I mean, in that situation, you may have been on their grounds of their hunting territory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of deer down low this time of year, and practically all year, the deer have quit being way up in the woods now. They mostly stay down low now, because of course they're gonna have the soybeans coming up in the cornfields here pretty soon, and that's mainly where they stay. So instead of them being up there, then they're all coming down here to hunt and stuff too.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris.
Yep.
So, question on you said 2 hikers went missing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any details, or can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah. From what I gather, it was 2 female. They was wearing bright pink. Okay. They went up to Long Arm. That's normally where a lot of that junk happens. You need to be out of there by you need to be out of there by 5 o'clock, really. And in the wintertime, you need to be out there by 2, really. But like I say, the trail splits. There's a waterfall to the left, and you can go past that waterfall, and there's one above it. But what people normally do is they go to the waterfall, they'll take pictures and stuff, and then they'll head back out. It's just like maybe a 20-minute hike from the road. But the trail splits, like I said. You go left of the waterfall, you go straight ahead. And it's a moderate climb, but there's a good trail up through there. And it used to be a Jeep trail is what it used to be. And a lot of people will bypass the falls or hear about the falls and think, and not know where they're at, and they'll just keep going straight. If you keep going straight up through there, you'll cross 4 creeks, and you'll come up to a big rock bluff. If you're at that rock bluff, you need to get out, because that's where they hang. And there's a switch back there, and it goes way back to the biggest mountain we've got back here is Rich Mountain. And you don't want to be in Rich Mountain, just trust me. But
okay.
As far as that rock bluff is, see, that one guy got missing that time. I ventured off the trail just for grins to see what all I could see there, and that's where I found that it was a brand new chair, and it was bent. I mean, it was demolished, and I found a bandana, and I found a horse bridle, and this was like probably about 1.5 miles, 2 miles off the trail. And from what I gather, he was riding a horse, and he had all his camping supplies with him. But that's all I found. And then on up above, I found a big old pile of crap. So, and the crap was different from what I've ever seen, and it was stacked up probably about a foot and a half high. Probably more information you want to hear.
Well, anyway. No, but those are important details, and you're actually kind of answering a question that it was in the back of my mind, and that is, and we've talked about this in the past, but this area, I think this is the same area you and I have talked about. This area has a history, correct?
Yes, it does.
And these 2 gals that went missing they're not the first ones, correct?
Right.
Okay. All right. And that guy with the bandana and the bridle and all that, that's another one.
Mm-hmm.
So, how far back does that history go? And you got a buddy, and we don't want to out him, but he's a game warden or something like that. Have you ever had a chance to have maybe an informal discussion with him about this area and what his opinion is?
Oh yeah, many times. See, he moved here from another state, and he was totally clueless when he got here. And me and my little dog Pee Wee, he's been gone several years now, but we were up there at we wasn't at Long Arm, we was at the one right next to it, Seals Creek, and there's a big fall there too. But anyway, we'd walked up through there, and it was about 7:30 in the morning, and when we started walking up there, we already heard one holler. You know, I mean, he was screaming like crazy. But I went on up there anyway because it's daylight. Most of the time, these around here in daylight, you know, they'll shy away. But anyway, got on up there and was looking around and everything, and the scream just kept getting closer and closer and closer. Well, as I was walking back out, I looked and seen two legs come up. I thought, right, crap, here he is. I'm going to walk right into this stupid thing. But it was the game warden, is what it was. And he was as pale as a ghost, and he had his hand on his 9mm. And he asked me, he said, what do you think that thing is screaming? I said, well, I'm just going to turn it around and ask you what you think it is screaming. And he said, well, I've heard a bobcat. He said, I've heard a bobcat. He said, and I've heard a fox. I said, a fox will, you know, they can make some real crazy sounds, you know. Yeah, and I told him, I said, well, that's not a fox. I said, you know that as well as I do. And I said, what do you actually think it is? And he looked at me, he said, you're going to laugh at me for saying this. I said, no, I won't. He said, I believe it's a Sasquatch. I said, you probably hit the nail right on the head, buddy. And he told me, he said, there's another guy sitting down there parked in his vehicle, said he's got a German Shepherd that won't even get out of his vehicle. And he looked at, I said, Pee Wee's used to all that. I said, he lives here with me, you know. And he said, you mind if I walk out with you? I said, well, no, come on. But yeah, he kept his hand on the 9mm, but.
Right. Well, and I understand that. I think maybe the 9mm would be
it's just like a BB gun to it. You know, that's what I told him. He
Sure.
Said, well, it makes me feel safe. I said, okay.
You know, you need something, right? Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think they have a pretty good understanding what weapons are, firearms especially.
They do.
So this was, and you may have already answered the question I'm about to ask, but I'll ask it anyway. The two gals that went missing, how long ago was that?
That was back last month, 1st of last month.
Okay, well that's too bad. And you think there's probably an association between these creatures and these two missing gals?
Oh yeah, they had all kinds of search people around. They had helicopters flying. I mean, you know, it was a mess there for probably about a little over 2 weeks. And I'd ride up there, you know, and shoo, man, they was, like I say, there's vehicles everywhere out looking, and
right.
I knew, you know, I knew they probably would never find them. Something will turn up here in, you know, the next couple months probably.
Yeah. So this is, I'm just going to kind of go back and kind of paint a little bit of a word picture for everybody and myself. So we got these two sets of waterfalls, right? And you've got and you said they're just a mere half mile from the road?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got a hiking trail, you go up there. How big of a road? I mean, how is it like a main road or like a little forest road, or is it? How much activity? How much car traffic?
It's well, like during right now, since it's social distancing, you know, they come up here. They come up here a lot. But the road, you can sometimes on some of the places you can pass. You know, two cars fine. But on some places there, you have, you know, one car has to pull off so the other one can get through. And then the trail. In other words, and then the trail from where you walk in is just a regular walking trail. It's probably about 2 to 3 foot wide.
Okay, and there's probably like a public parking area to access the trailhead. Is that
Yeah, well,
kind of how that
just
works? Okay,
yeah, just a gravel pull off. That's all it is.
okay.
But
Wow.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Hey, Chris, let
you
me
can
ask
go into the daytime and not have any problems, right? But
Right.
late afternoon, evening, it's a real good place not to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
You don't want to be there.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I was just going to ask: were there any vocalizations or like audio that of these creatures that you have heard of in that area?
Whenever I go up there, I hear a lot of whoops, and I do hear a lot of screams and stuff. And I've took some of my friends up there with me, and they've heard them, and after they've heard them, they said that they wouldn't go back. So
Yeah.
But seem like during the day when I go up there, I've got got my recorder and everything, because I'm out looking around, checking out, see where they've been and everything else, where I might be able to set up and get some good audio or something. But during the day, you might hear a whoop here and there, but nothing major.
Right.
But and seem like if you go in there of a night and they see your lights coming, they keep their mouth shut for some reason. I don't know why. They don't know if they don't want to be, if they know what I'm trying to do or what.
Yeah. And how different are their vocalizations, I guess, or sounds compared to other animals like coyotes or other wildcats and things like that? Like, what is the main difference that you would say?
It starts out as a low or a high pitch sound, like a siren, and will keep going. I mean, going and going and going. And you think good lands, they're gonna have to shut up here in a minute, but they won't. I mean, it's just like their lung capacity. I mean, it just keeps going and going and going. I've heard foxes sound close to it, but it'll be like maybe 10, 15 seconds, but these will go on. I mean, on and on and on. So,
Right.
I guarantee if you hear it, you know what it is.
Yeah. and Will,
Hey,
Tom,
Chris, did you ever get a recording of any of the audios? Were you ever successful with that?
No, I haven't been. I've got some, but they're faint. You can't hardly hear them. I put them on my headphones, and you can hear them, but like I say, they're faint. And I've tried and tried, but the only thing I can think of is they know that I'm there. See, I'm getting ready to go camping here pretty soon, and where I get there, then hopefully I can get some good sounds and send you guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'd be very interested in that.
Yeah. And as far as tracks go down there in the sand, you can see the big wide places and stuff, but you can't make out the toes and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because that sand's so soft, it won't hold a track. And
right, exactly.
And people have tried to show me. Well, they say that it's a track, but you can tell where it's somebody barefooted. You can tell the difference in their tracks too.
Yeah, you really can.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of jump in for a second, and I think Bill, you've had some experiences in this same area, or tell us a little bit about what you've encountered.
I'm further north in the Appalachians than where Chris is. Chris and I talk quite often.
Mm-hmm.
And before I get started, I wanted to have Chris talk a little bit about one of the areas that he was in, and he had left something out for them. And I'd like him to tell the story on that. This is really, really interesting.
Oh, the coconut?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, it was back. It was in the winter. It's been a little while ago now, but there is a first campsite up there right as it's at the very end, And you walk this trail. It used to be a Jeep trail too, to get to Chigger Branch and all those others. But there's a first little campsite, probably about 70, maybe even 100 yards from where you park there. And I sat in there a lot, but I got back there that night and I sat there and I had two of those old coconut cakes that had marshmallow and coconut and chocolate in them. And I thought, well, I said, I'll sit here and eat one, and I'll set one on this stump. The stump was probably about 4 or 5 foot. Well, not 5 foot, but about 4 foot or so. It was a fairly big stump. And I set it on top of it, and I got back probably about 10 foot from it and sat there. And I done a whoop. And I sat there, and it wasn't even 5 minutes till I heard something coming. And it walked down the trail, walked right straight over to where I was at, and I didn't have a light on. I had my light, but I didn't turn it on. And it was probably about a 3/4 of a moon, so you could make out. And it was probably about 7 foot tall, 6, 7 foot tall. But it took that marshmallow, or not that marshmallow and coconut off of that and chocolate. And he sat there and he took a bite of it and sat there and eat it. And he squatted down on the. He was in shoot. I mean, I could have threw a rock. I could probably spit on him, but he squatted down and sat there and he ate that. And to be honest with you, I almost soiled myself, but I just kept composure. And when he was done with it, he just grunted at me. He said, And I thought, well, and then he just stood up and he took a few steps and turned around and looked at me. And just went on down to my left, and that's where I had to go to get in the Jeep. And I thought, geez, you should have, you could have at least turned around and went the other way, But anyway, I gave him probably about 10, 15 minutes, and that's about that's about the only time I could sit there, man. I tell you, I was spooked. And I went halfway down the trail, and I ended up crossing the creek before I was supposed to, and got on the other side, got down there in my Jeep. And after I got to rolling, I just sat there and thought, man, that was crazy. But I call him Spook. So that's what I call him. I gave him a name.
Yeah, well, that's an incredible story. I would have been. I don't know what I would have done. To be honest with you, I think that would have been pretty scary.
Because
we do things differently on the East Coast than you guys do on the West Coast.
There you go. Absolutely.
I know. If you continue going on up that trail, like I said, it's Chigger Branch. That's where I was camping that night. I had all that activity around me. I had rocks threw at me, and I couldn't come out because it was 10 o'clock at night, and I mean it was thunderstorming, and I was in my tent with Pee Wee, and it was probably about midnight, and it was pitch black, and something was rubbing on the side of my tent. I mean, it had its hand, and its hand, you could see it moving backwards and forwards. I turned the light on, and I thought to myself, how in the world can anybody be here? It's pitch black. There wasn't no lights. I thought it might have been somebody, and so it quit. So I just went back to sleep, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, it happened again, and so. I just crawled down there at the end of the tent, and I grabbed my knife. That's the only thing I had, and my light. And I said, I'm coming out. And I reached and grabbed the zipper and done a few zips with it. And I thought, do I really want to see what's out there? But I didn't open the tent. I stayed awake the rest of the night until daylight come. When daylight come, I packed up and was gone.
You should also tell them about the college students that were doing the looking for bats.
Oh yeah. I was riding up there one night by myself. Pee Wee wasn't even with me. I just got in off of from Connecticut off a run, and Pee Wee was standing at his mama's house, and I just ride. It's about 2 a.m. I'm riding up there, and come around the curve, and there was an orange cone sitting out in the middle of the road. And I thought, what in the world's an orange cone? And I looked up a little bit behind it, and there's a net up I'd say it's probably about 12 foot high. And here come two flashlights coming down. And it's two girls. And she said, I can move that if you need to get by. I said, nah. I said, heck, I'm just riding. I said, I'll turn around, and leave. And I said, yo, she said, we're studying bats. And I said, okay. And I said, all right, have at it. And I told him, I said, just be careful. And she said, she took a step or two and she turned around. She said, what do you mean by be careful? I said, well, just be careful. And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, there's things in here, that you probably don't know about and you probably don't want to see. She said, bear? I said, you don't have to worry about a bear. She said, well, those signs back there say aggressive. I said, yeah. I said, that's put here for something else. And I said, good luck on seeing a bear up in here. And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, just be careful, And she said, okay. So I drove on down. They was past Long Arm, so I went down to Long Arm and sat there and just waited and rolled my window down. And what they were doing was call blasting. And I don't know where they got it, but it sounded like a squatch. And then the morning call blasted. Probably about 30 seconds after that, they got answered. And what it was a challenge call. I know that's what it was because Papa's told me about it before. Well, it was a long ways back, and then within another 30 seconds, it screamed again, and it was close. And then it screamed one more time, and here they come. They was two girls and two guys in a Bronco, and they come out of there, dragging the net and the cone behind them. So they didn't even bother to pick up their cone or their net. And they went on down through there, and right as they passed me, it screamed again, and it couldn't have been a half a mile away then. And it was coming down the road. So it was pretty mad that, that they had blew that challenge call. So,
And Chris, this was, so who was doing the call blasting? It wasn't these two gals, was it?
Well, it's the two gals and the guys up there. They told me they had their boyfriends with them up there.
Okay.
But they told me before, that they were looking for bats.
Yeah,
but anyway,
right.
Yeah, but anyway,
they weren't looking for bats. In other words, they were.
No.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I was trying to get clear on that.
What the purpose for the net was, I don't know, unless it was just to try to keep people from coming on up in there on them. That's the only thing I can figure because, what was it?
Well, who knows? Maybe they're doing two things at once.
Surely to goodness they wasn't trying to catch one.
Right.
Mm.
Well, and here we are where we're at today. Bats, you got big problems and little tiny things, right? The bats are a big problem for the whole world right now.
Yes, they are.
Oh, man.
But you might see, me and Hunters rode up that road many a night, and you might see maybe one or maybe two, within 3 or 4 driving sessions up through there. So that, bats are very scarce. I mean, flying around the road anyway. I have more here in my yard than they would up there. I mean.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah. As far as bear goes, I've been up in there. I've lived here all my life, and I'm lucky to see one bear within maybe 2 years up in there. I've got more bear here in my yard than you would, up there. I mean, it's just crazy. Sure. And they've got that. I know what the sign's for. Everybody that lives here knows what that sign's for. Aggressive bear activity. It ain't because of bears.
It's a euphemism.
Yeah, they've had so much stuff happen up there. They're trying to shut it down. Is what they're trying to do. I mean, as far as camping and stuff, because so much junk's happened. I mean, they was an encounter up there several years back that they had donuts sitting in their vehicle while they were camping, and they had 2 come down on them. They stayed in the tent, and it got into their food. It threw a rock through the window and got the donuts, and of course that it wasn't this game warden then. It was another game warden, and he said it was a bear. And that guy told him, he said, I ain't seen a bear that can throw a rock, you know.
Right. I do understand the wanting donuts, but yeah, that's a bit extreme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they like those donuts.
Yeah, no kidding. And this, just this is up in the Appalachians, or
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure is. Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to kind of jump over to Bill a little bit, and I want to kind of get caught up on some of the encounters you've had.
Yes, sir. I live a lot further north than where Chris is, but I'm still an Appalachian American. And I'm actually in western Pennsylvania. And a few years back, we started having some noises behind our house. And what it started out as, we were hearing a train whistle when the train would come by where we live. And started catching a little bit of a different sound in that train whistle. And I'm one of these people that I have to sleep with my window open. I don't care what time of the year it is. I don't care if it's snowing. I have the bedroom window open because I prefer it that way. And one night, my wife wakes me up and goes, "What is that sound?" And we were hearing what sounded like some samurai movie with these sounds back and forth. I was like, what in the world was that? And this continued for about a week. Well, then my wife is really into bird watching and that type of stuff. And her dad was a professor for a major university, and he was in biology. So the whole family was big in that type of bird watching stuff. And one night, it's probably about 2 a.m, we start hearing the sounds of birds you would normally hear during the day. And so we were like, what in the world is that? And I'm like, there's no birds that should be out in the middle of the night making the noises that are going on. Well, it continues, and we started hearing about people seeing things in this wooded area behind where we live. And we live in a neighborhood, and there's quite a few people here. And one of our neighbors had security cameras put around their house. And I said, well, what's going on? And they said, well, we think there might be some bear activity or something. And more people started hearing these sounds. And what really got me is one night I started hearing owls. And hearing an owl is not uncommon where we're at. We're in the mountains here. But what is uncommon is when the pictures on your walls vibrate when these owls are doing these calls. That doesn't happen. And we started hearing them up close and then at a distance. And then the ones at a distance would make it in closer and closer and closer. And then all of a sudden they would totally stop. And I'm like, that's got to be Sasquatch activity. And I had contacted Will and explained to him what was going on. So I recorded it, and I sent him some copies of the recordings that were going on. And I've sent them to Chris also, because Chris and I talked quite a bit. And I was like, well, I'm going to try something. So I went out and I bought a duck call and a crow call. And so for about the last 5 years, when these sounds start, I start making sounds, and now I'm getting return sounds from the activity in the middle of the night. And it's been very interesting. And where I live, my activity will actually start probably about this week. And that's one of the reasons why we decided to come on at this time, is because I've kept a logbook for about the last 10 years on this. And the first week of May every year for the last 10 years is when this activity will start. And it runs right up until about 2 weeks before our deer hunting season starts. And then it'll totally stop. And it'll just vanish. There'll be no more sounds in the area where we're at that particular time. Now, when I was a kid growing up here, I had a neighbor who had a small farm, and he was telling me about the cavemen, and I had no idea what he was talking about. And when that Patterson-Gimlin movie came out, he ended up taking our family to go see it. Well, we went and saw it, and he goes, well, that's what I call the cavemen. And he was telling me that, he goes, well, in the spring of the year, if you're near the river, there were some islands on these rivers. He said, don't go out to those islands because those things are out there giving birth. He says, and you will disappear. He says, I'm not kidding you. Well, he starts telling stories about when he was a kid, and there are two rivers that come together. And one is called the Clarion, and the other is called the Allegheny. And they were talking about, and this must have been during the Depression, that they were swimming, and there was a big bridge pillar they jumped off of. Well, something was in the woods, and this one kid in particular started throwing rocks and sticks and just sort of being a jerk. Well, they were jumping off this bridge pillar into the river, and one of the guys saw something big in the water. I mean big. And it was under the water. This kid dove off, never came up. And still to this day, they've never found him. And a lot of people are like, well, he must have jumped in and got sucked into the sand or something. And they tried for weeks to try and find his body, and it never came up. And that really opened my eyes as a kid as to what possibly could happen.
And this is in the area that not too far, kind of in the vicinity of the where these creatures birth their young.
Oh yeah, it's the same river, absolutely.
Same river. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's a lot of caves.
With the kids.
No, there was a lot of caves on those rivers because it's all limestone here. And on those rivers, there's just caves everywhere. And there's a lot of people here that see stuff. There's been hunters that see stuff here. But in this area, people don't report their sightings as much because, for one, they don't know who to report it to. And another reason is there was a group in the area that were researchers, and each time that this individual was called to come look at something, they tried to make the person who had the sighting out to be a complete moron. So these people were like, we're not even going to bother with calling them anymore.
Yeah,
so
we've heard that quite a bit.
Yeah, they just don't do it at all. And so I started digging into the subject a little bit, and 2 years ago, in the middle of the night, I started hearing rock clacking. And this was going on basically around the perimeter of this swampy wooded area behind where we live. And with all the houses here and everybody having pets, I told my wife, I said, I guarantee you what they're doing is they're out there clacking rocks to see who has dogs and who doesn't. And they've been doing that around the perimeter of this every spring when they come in, because people move in and out all the time. And some of the neighbors have actually seen these things. One of the neighbors called the police and said there was a homeless guy in a hoodie living in the woods in this area. And our house sort of sets up on a hill, and we can see down into it a little bit. It's very wooded though. And I know the police, and the cop says, have you seen anybody down there? And I said, I'll guarantee you there's nobody homeless living down there because you've not seen a campfire. And if somebody was staying in the woods, you'll see a campfire, because it is very cool here because we are up in the mountains. And he's like, well, that's a good point. And he had an incident where he had been called. He shows up, he sees the thing, and told his dispatcher, yeah, I see it, but I'm not getting out of my car. And he didn't. And he's probably smart for not doing that. And we had, when was this? About 3 years ago, we had a young lady's car found along the interstate. Key still in it. Her purse was still in the car. It was unlocked. She was gone. And I know a couple of the guys that work for the PennDOT. That's who works on our roads here. And the guy told me that when they came across it and the police and everything came out, there was 3 areas down the embankment behind the guardrails where there was 3 big areas that all the vegetation had been flattened down. And they've never found her. I don't remember what her name was, but she's never been found. And we do have people that come up missing in the area from time to time.
Wow.
But I don't consider myself a researcher. I just wanted to educate myself on this subject.
Well, it sounds like they've inserted you into that role, whether you wanted to or not.
Yeah. I told my wife, I said, I'm
owl
not into this, but
sounds
for some reason it's into me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard. Yeah. I always get my ears perk up when people talk about those owl sounds that just rattle you, because there was only one time there's an area where these creatures have been. I don't think they're there all the time, but they've been there historically. And a buddy of mine went hiking up there, and we heard, the owl sounds that just about rattle your chest. Very interesting.
Oh yeah. Well, this is what I tell people, that when you hear this, and just like with what Chris was talking about when you said describe it, how I would describe it is, you don't hear one of these things, you feel it. Because and Chris will tell you, the sound goes right through you.
Yep, sure does.
Hey, let me.
Like them kids riding. Well, it's sort of like them kids riding around with them highfalutin stereo systems in their car, and you can feel it before you actually hear the music, and you feel the vibration from it. And I was going to mention another thing, that we went up to a place called Tynesta, and that's on the Allegheny River. It's about 3/4 of the way up through our state going north. And we go camping at this place called the Tynesta Reservoir, and it's a state-run deal. It's really a nice place. And we were up there in 2016, and there was a young fellow working the gate, and we were going in, and he sort of just checks you in, and you get your little card for what your camping spot is. We got a tiny little camper thing. It was just my wife and I. And so we get the thing, we're talking to him, we get in there and get hooked up. Well, in the evenings, he sort of walked around, and they got a fella that rides around and sells firewood. He's got a little contract to do it. And super, super great guy. Well, the guy that works the gate was standing there with us, and it was getting dark, and we were cooking some marshmallows. And he was just sort of hanging out. And all of a sudden, we heard the most god-awful screaming howl. And our neighbor had his air conditioner on his camper, and you could hear this over that. And I mean, everything was shaking. I had my hand on the side of our camper, and you could feel it vibrating from the sound. All of a sudden, behind the brush behind our campsite, something took off. I don't know if it was a deer or what it was, but there's water there that comes out of the spillway from the reservoir. Whatever it was splashed through that and was gone. And that park ranger young fella, he turned as white as a sheet. And I looked at him and I said, "What is that?" He goes, "We don't know. It's been going on for a couple of years now." He said, "Whatever it is goes to the top of the spillway on the opposite side of the campground, And every couple of weeks, it'll just scream like crazy. And then it just doesn't do it for a while. And then it'll come back and it'll do it again. Well, I got up about 2 in the morning and I stepped outside to check our fire ring to make sure everything was burning down like it should. And I heard what sounded like a fire siren in the far, far distance. You could hear it echoing up and down the river valley. And I woke my wife up and I'm like, you got to hear this. And we heard it and it sounded like it was coming from further up north. And then we heard another one sound like it was coming from further down south. The next day we rode up to this little town called Tiddy Ute. And they do a battle reenactment from World War II at one of the bridges up there in one of the towns. And we went up there and had breakfast and we were talking to some of the locals. And I said, you guys got a pretty powerful siren up here for the fire department. I said, I heard it at like 2 in the morning. He looks at me and goes, that isn't a fire siren. I said, what is it? He goes, you don't want to know. He says, that's not a siren. He said, that's something doing it. And so we got talking to some of the other people camping there and some of the other people that work for the Park Service, and found out most of these young people that are working for the Park Service are college students, and they take these jobs in the summer to make a little bit of money on it. And at every campground, you have what they call a campground host. And they have a position, and what they're there for is to help other people, maybe the first-time campers hooking their stuff up, or just general information on the area. Well, I got talking to the host, and they told me that they do this all the time since they're retired. And they said that they've had people ran out of there because they were scared because of the sounds going on. But we didn't have anything like happen to us that would have ran us out, but it was very interesting. So when we got home, I got on my computer and I typed in, strange sounds, Tinesta, odd noises, and some of the stuff that started coming up was about those same sounds in that area. It was very, very interesting. And up in that area, they had at Kinzu, which is a little bit further north, they had this Sasquatch calling contest or Bigfoot calling contest or something. And a few years back, somebody took a picture or a video of something that he thought was Bigfoot in the woods up there. And I know that in these areas, there are lots of people that have sightings. They do. They have lots of sightings. And it's very interesting. But like I said, in the part of the state that we're in, people don't really report it because, for one, people here just sort of stay to themselves. They don't take well to outsiders, and they just they know it's here. They live with it, and they really don't want outsiders coming in.
Hey, let me jump in real quick and ask you a question, because obviously with the reports and everything, you said that the police will come in and maybe interview people, or they don't want to tell people. Are you a little bit surprised that the police don't do a little bit more investigation into these encounters and what people are hearing and seeing?
No. What are they going to do? They come in, they're going to take the report, file it away, it gets sent somewhere. They don't have a crime that has been committed, so really it's not a crime. It's just a sighting or something.
Probably just routine like investigation and everything. They have to do. I'm sure. Yeah.
Brown cow.
Oh yeah, the brown cow. Yeah, I have some friends that are retired state troopers, and I have some friends who are in the game commission, and I've had them tell me that what they do when they have an incident is they will report it as a brown cow incident or a brown dog incident, something along those lines, because they know people are listening on the scanners as to what's going on. So if they have a call and they're calling in And they can't very well say, oh, yeah, well, there's a Bigfoot in this farmer's field and it did a bunch of destructions. They say, well, there was a brown cow that did this. And they have this whole coding system that they use. It's very interesting. And I had one of them tell me that they even have a phone number that they're supposed to call and report this stuff to. And one of them told me, he says, I called the number one time to see what it was. And it was the agricultural department in D.C.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to jump in real quick. You talk about the one of these creatures mimicking a siren.
Yes, sir.
And we've heard that from one of our guests several months back. And she was actually in Texas. So I just found it very interesting that this thing's mimicking like some kind of a siren.
Because
we've heard that before.
The siren. Yeah, well, the siren also, here we have a lot of sightings and whatnot along the railroad system. And when they do that siren sound, if you listen closely when a train's blowing their whistles, because when a train does that, that means they're coming through a populated area. And you can hear when the train whistle stops, you'll still hear these things going on. And you can tell the difference in the two. And I've had people that I know that worked when the coal industry was big here, and they worked at what they called a tipple. And what the tipple is coal trucks would come in and they'd dump the coal, and it would get loaded into these railroad cars. And one of the guys told me one time, he says, I've seen the trains come in and these things are laying on top of the coal because they blend right in with it and they're catching a free ride. And I'm sure that Chris has heard the same thing down in his area.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So just to kind of follow up on that, I mean, how smart are these creatures? Would you say?
I think they're smarter than us because they don't smoke or drink.
Yeah. They're not savages.
Well, they're the masters of their environment.
Right.
They are, and they're the world's leading hide and seek player. I mean, really, nobody's ever got one. Nobody's really an expert on them because what are you basing your stuff on? Because you have all these different groups of people and all these different investigators and stuff, and pretty much they all are doing the same thing. And if one of them took and hit their thumb with a hammer, well, by golly, the rest of them would do it too. And Will has been the only guy that I've seen that does things totally different and has really done the research and goes out there and actually does the stuff. And that's why I had contacted him.
Right.
And Chris did the same thing.
Yep.
And absolutely, that's true. And one of the things that Will always emphasizes is context. You can't just go out there and look at a story or a possible encounter and then not ask questions. You have to look at the context as to what was maybe going on in that situation. I mean, so Will, can you real quickly just talk about the Goldhammer situation and how you use context as opposed to other researchers that didn't?
Well, that situation, like most of them that I've been involved with over the years, in that particular one, there were a number of people that went there before me because the local newspaper had published those folks' physical address in the newspaper and was on the front page of the paper. So I knew that people were going to go there. And when I talked to the family, I asked them, what did these other people do and ask, and just out of curiosity. So they told me. And in every single case, it was almost identical. They came there and collected the story. They looked for footprints, hair, scat. Didn't find anything, so they left. that was the end of their interest. I looked at what was going on. And when I started looking at the larger picture, the behaviors, etc., we found a lot more evidence, and it turned into a 9-month investigation.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely, because you looked at the not just the prints, but also the other things that were going on in that area, and you identified different creatures that were there. Not just like looking at basic footprints, but you could identify the family of the creatures that were there.
Well, that happened as the investigation went on. It wasn't initially.
Yeah.
What happened there was the first thing that caught my attention was the creature's behavior. It wasn't trying to escape. Young Nick, who was there, the 16-year-old, initially it was trying to herd him away. And that really raised questions in the back of my mind as to why. What was it doing? So the second time it actually chased him away from the area when he went back. So I wanted to go see what was going on. Why was it doing that particular kind of behavior? And we found out that there were 2 juveniles hiding, who were in a hidden location. So I told the family to keep your eyes open. There's probably a female in the area too. We knew there was an adult male. We found tracks of 2 young ones, 12 and 9 inches long. About a month later, they did see the female under a very bright light just outside in their yard. Over time, I started talking to locals in the area, and we had a history of activity from people's memories who were actually there as far back as 1925. So there was a much larger context to things, and there were other people having sightings, not just that family.
Yeah, and the great thing that you just mentioned, though, too, is that this was a 9-month-long investigation, whereas a lot of these days when a reporter, journalist hears about an account, they just go there and just look at the area real quick, maybe interview a couple people, and then that's it. And I understand that because they have to do their job and everything. But as researchers, though, like someone as brilliant as you have to actually go there and do some long-term investigation about the accounts, the history of that area, and so forth.
Well, my background and training is anthropology, archaeology, then I ended up in psychology. So I have questions from different angles when I go into an area. Most people who label themselves, and these are all self-labeled individuals who go in there, and even myself, I don't have a title, so I just call myself an investigator or researcher or whatever the flavor of the moment is. I hate to say that, but there's a lot of self-proclaimed researchers, and I hate to say this, but most of them don't have a clue what they're doing. They may be well-intentioned, but they don't really know what they're doing. So they go into a place, they look at the surface stuff. Again, they collect a story, look for any sort of evidence that the creature was there, and for them, that's pretty much it. Our investigation at Yakult would have continued going on and becoming more involved, except for, and I'll be blunt, I'll say that this PhD was an absolute moron that came out there. And instead of following the evidence or paying attention to his own training, he decided to introduce things into the environment that totally destroyed the rapport that we had sort of created there. We weren't violating the areas the creatures were in, and vice versa. There was almost a, without any sort of communication, there was sort of this implied mutual respect. We didn't go into their areas at night. It was okay to go in there during the daytime when they weren't present, and vice versa. They wouldn't come into the mowed yard and things like that. So we were experiencing a lot of evidence and behavioral things going on that were continuing. There was a steady continuation throughout that 9-month time period until that person came and introduced things, and he violated the conditions of his coming onto private property, violated the family who was there. I mean, it was just it was a hot mess, and that ended this situation because the creatures left.
Well, also, Will, you have a background in the military. You know from being in the military that if you're going hunting tigers in the woods, you don't go out beating a drum yelling, "I'm hunting tigers, I'm hunting tigers."
Exactly, right. Yeah, I was a reconnaissance specialist, so there's a very specific way you approach situations.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, you don't go in there announcing yourself and doing stupid things.
Right. And my personal opinion is I'm not a researcher. I just wanted to have a little bit of knowledge on what was going on around me. And I've looked at some of the stuff that these so-called research people do. And I actually just think they're a bunch of people who are very nosy. They just want to collect stuff and sit around and talk about it. But what do they actually do with their information once they get it? They're not compiling it. They're not looking at patterns of things. They're not looking at any of that. And with Will's background in the military, we could all start in California, make our way across the United States on foot, never be seen by anybody. And if we can do that, these things can do it all day long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Think about that. Yeah. And
Bill, that's an excellent point. That explains, I think, to a lot of people, why haven't these creatures been seen? And you just nailed it. If we can do it, they can certainly do it.
Absolutely, because if your enemy is operating during the day, you operate at night.
Correct.
Right.
Will and I have had some pretty in-depth conversations on stuff, and Chris and I have also. And everything that these things are doing is exactly what someone who's either a very good hunter or military background, that's exactly what they would do. And especially somebody in reconnaissance, because you're the eyes and the ears, and you're collecting intel. And these things probably do the same thing. And I know some of these other podcasts that are out there, these people are always like, well, what do you think it is? And they go, oh, Gigantopithecus, and I think it's this, and I think it's that. And my personal opinion is I think it's a form of a human of some sort, because I think these things are a lot smarter than people give them credit for. They're not like an animal running off of instinct. They think, they plan, they do. And they repeat that process. Just like with the rock clacking. They're checking for dogs. They're doing what they do, and they have to eat. So what are they eating? They're eating what they know they can eat in the woods or wherever they're at. And everything has to survive, and their survivability, part of that, I think, has to do with their ability to be able to blend in, hide, and move. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Bill, quick question. I'm looking for a little bit of clarification. I'm going to back up the truck for just a little bit. Did I understand correctly that you were saying these things actually were mimicking locomotive horns a while back?
The sound that they're doing will blend in with it, but it's like the siren sound. And a train horn has a certain frequency that it runs. And these things, from what I've heard in my area, they are very close to mimicking that, but it's a little bit different. And that way, I'm sure that they can call to each other while the train whistle's being blown and not give away exactly where they're at.
Yeah, part of their strategy or tactics for camouflage, kind of a vocal camouflage.
Yeah. Well, just like when I hear them doing that, normally where we live, when the trains come through, they have a certain sequence that they'll blow. And they have, at one point, I'll have to record it and send it to you guys. But at one point, there's one sequence that's about 30 seconds long. And then it's when that one's going on that the train will end, and you'll still hear this other sound there. And it's similar to it, but it's not. And like on a car, you have two different horns. You have a low and a high, and the air horns on a train are set up similar to that. Well, this sound doesn't have a high and a low. It's only one sound, and it's not one or the other. It's sort of its own distinct sound. And that's what I picked up on.
That's such a great point. When they make these sounds, are they communicating to each other, or are they maybe sending the message to like other people or other animals in the area that, hey, we're here?
Probably both. We have in this area, we have what we call the spring peepers, and they're these little frogs, and they make noises all night. Mm-hmm. We have other insects and stuff in the area that make noise, and you can tell when these things are here because you don't hear anything at all.
Right.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And people's dogs won't even stay in their yard. They'll stay in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting because the entire woods in the area goes completely silent. You won't, like in the evenings and stuff, you'll hear squirrels bedding down, and you don't hear any of that. And people who hunt and go out in the woods a lot, there's certain sounds that are normal to hear in the woods. And when you hear those sounds, it's a healthy environment and everything's operating like it should. If you're in the woods here and you don't hear anything, you better start watching.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Because there's something going on. And in Chris's area, it's the same way.
Yes, it is.
Because you can tell when this is going on. We've also had our coyotes are in this area are moving more into the urban housing development areas and things like that. And we've had something, I'm not going to say that they're fighting with these coyotes, but we've had something here that has literally torn these coyotes apart. And they, when these things make sounds, these coyotes, you can hear them yipping, and they're on the move, and they want out of the area.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, are there bears?
All the time.
Yeah, are there bears in that area? I mean, could that be?
We have the one of the largest black bear populations in the United States, and people come to this state from all over the world to hunt black bear. I think last year they killed one that was 985 pounds, and it's not uncommon for them to be from 700 to 800 with the larger ones. Now that
wait.
one was shot.
Hang on, Bill. You're saying 1,000 pound, almost 1,000 pound black bear?
Yeah, look it up online. They killed it last year. They think that the guy was
that's a well-fed.
Yeah, they think that the guy was feeding that one. But there's been several of them that have been killed that are in the 800-pound range, between 800 and 900.
Man,
there's some massive bears here, and I have them in my yard. I can send you pictures of them at my back door. I've had them come, up to vehicles. We're armed everywhere we go here because of the bear situation. And when these things are in the areas, there's no bears at all.
Right.
They vanish. They will not be in the same area with them at all.
Right.
Hey, fellas. I just wanted to mention that I looked it up online as we were talking about that. And this is for listeners who are going to say, oh, well, there's no such thing. Yeah, there's one right online here. This was Pennsylvania, an 875-pounder harvested in 2010 in Middle Smithfield Township, Pike County, It says since 1992, 7 black bears weighing at least 800 pounds have been lawfully harvested. So that is correct.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and they may have taken the one that was the record last year out of the equation because the Game Commission thinks that guy was feeding it because he had a like a cake and donut place, and they think he was taking the leftover stuff and dumping it because he shot it right by his house too. So that that one is the anomaly, but it was the weight that I said it was, and they had it listed online. And I get stuff from monthly stuff from the Game Commission because I'm a hunter, and I see a lot of that stuff. I mean, it's amazing. But we have some very large bears here, and when I'm telling you, when these things are in the area, the bears will disappear. They want nothing to do with them at all.
Wow.
And they found bears here that have been killed by something. And I go, oh, it was a poacher, it was this, it was that. Poachers don't tear stuff apart. A poacher does one of two things. They either kill it to take it and eat it, or take the hide, or they just shoot it and leave it. But they don't tear something apart. And some of these things that are found here have been found torn apart.
Hey, let me ask you real quick with regards to Sasquatch. Do you think that it would be, I guess, more intimidated with a grizzly as opposed to a black bear, or would they just hunt like whatever is out there?
I don't think they actually hunt the bears. Okay, I'm gonna school you a little bit on black bears. All right, with a grizzly, normally a grizzly bear will charge you, or if they do attack you, they want you out of the area. They will put you down, and they'll, if they do kill you, they'll normally drag you somewhere and bury you or whatever. If a black bear attacks you, you're on the dinner menu. That's the only reason they'll come after you. Black bears are totally different because they won't attack a person. 99% of the time they'll run, but if they do attack somebody, they're going to be dinner. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's right.
There is, as Will says, a stack lunch, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey,
so when we go camping and hiking, we're very, very well armed.
Right.
Hey, just a quick update. Wynn, our friend at the Flathead Reservation in Montana, sent me a message a couple days ago, and it's something he's checking into, but he got a report of a Sasquatch actually chasing a grizzly near where he's located. So we'll update as we get more information on that.
Yeah. Well, see, here, the bears, like at night, they climb a tree. And they'll bed down up in a tree, so they're off the ground. And I've always thought, well, why in the world would they do that? And because they're one of the biggest critters that we have in the woods here. And I'm like, well, they'll take on anything and fight it. But why in the world would they climb a tree and bed down in it? And here it's just an instinct thing that they do. And I always thought, well, if these Bigfoot are around, hell, I'd climb a tree too.
No.
And that's because I actually took a picture a few years ago out the one of the windows of our house of early in the morning. There was a bear sleeping way up high in a tree. And I thought that was a pretty neat picture. I'll have to send it to you guys. But is their instinct of getting off the ground and getting high up in that tree, is that because these things have been around for so long and that's just what they started doing when hundreds and hundreds of years ago? Possibly. So what other questions?
Here's one. The same question that I asked to Chris. What types of sounds do they make? Have you ever been? I guess have you ever been intimidated by them?
Oh yeah, something 8 foot tall and 1,000 pounds plus, you'd be intimidated too. I mean, of course.
Yeah.
Especially when you're camping and you hear something and it wakes you up in the middle of the night. It's like, what
Yes.
the crap was
Most-
that?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, let me kind of follow up on that too. Like, what times of the day are the sounds that you've heard made? Are they like late?
They're always at night.
Yeah.
From about an hour after dark until right around daylight normally.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard stuff during the day also. We were hiking one time, and we were in a really nice, beautiful area, and it was wooded, and we heard this really deep sound, and I'll try and make it. It went, and I thought, that sort of sounds like a cow, but the ground was vibrating, and we kept walking. We heard it again. Well, then we heard some brush breaking, and we looked, and we didn't get a good sight of what it was, but whatever it was black, and it was big, and there was a gas pipeline there, and this thing moved across the gas pipeline quickly, and from where we were, we didn't really get a good look at it, but this thing sort of paralleled us until we got out of there and back to our vehicle. Now, we never saw a good sight line of it. It never made an aggression towards us. And I doubt very seriously it was a bear, because bears will make noises, but they don't travel very far standing on their back feet, because just the way they're built, and they take short steps, and they're not balanced well for that. And yeah, there are videos of, you'll see them walking in neighborhoods. I saw a video of one on YouTube where the thing had a bad front paw, and it had learned to walk upright like a person and was walking right through a neighborhood. And yeah, everything will adapt to, for survival, but on average, you don't see them doing that. You darn sure won't see them run. And when this started going on, we didn't run. We walked fast, because I know better than to run in the woods.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that, Ron. Me and Hunter heard that same sound up there at the creek there. It's been probably last month. We heard the same thing.
Right. Because you'll hear this, like, and a bear will grunt, but a bear does it differently. And a bear will cough, but it's a different sound than what these things will do. And the mouth is shaped totally different between the two, and so
I'm sorry,
of a barky sound out of a bear, where you can get more of a deeper type human sound. And Chris will tell you, he's heard the same thing.
Sorry about that, Bill. I had one of my friends on my mind there. I misspoke. Called you a different name. I'm sorry.
Run. You said run.
Yeah. Well, I've got a friend.
Like, where am I going to run to?
Yeah, I've got a friend that lives there like that. And he, me and him talk like that. I had him on my mind. I'm sorry.
Well, that's all right. You and I've talked a lot about the different sounds that they've made and different things, and you even had things you found in the woods where they had stacked up rocks and
Lord,
I think are markers.
Yep, bunches of rock stacks, and that rock clacking you was talking about too. Yeah, I've heard that rock clacking bunches of times while I was camping.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, a couple of years ago, where I'm at, we have a fracking industry here doing all this gas fracking now, and I've heard some of the guys that work in that. I'm involved in a business where I sort of interact with them, and I've heard them talk about some of the stranger stuff that they've had happen, and footprints they've found on pipelines and well site areas. And one day, I saw this truck, and this guy it was a brand new Ford utility truck, and I was like, what is he doing? And he had these little sensors on sticks, He's walking along about every 20, 25 feet, sticking them in the ground, pointing them towards the woods.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I was like, what's he doing? So I pull up. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And he goes, oh, I work with the gas industry, and we're doing seismic activity. I said, well, those are motion sensors. Those are not made for listening in the ground. I said, and they also have infrared on them. And he looked at me and he goes, what do you know about that? And I went into a little detail about how I knew about it. And he just sort of smiled at me. And I said, I also know that you don't work for the gas business because you're wearing brand new boots, brand new jeans. You've got a brand new button-up shirt on that you're very uncomfortable in because you keep itching. I said, so tell me another one.
Right. Much like those government vehicles that follow me around a lot.
Yeah. And I saw them again on a state game lands area. It was the same truck, same guy. And I said, oh, more seismic activity. And he sort of winked at me and said, yeah. And wasn't too much longer. It was probably about 4 months after that, they came in and pulled all the sensors.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of activity going on at the time.
Right. That night,
sure somebody.
That night at Chigger Branks, I was telling you about where I had those rocks and stuff threw at us, and we got in a tent and it flew with a tent. I heard the rock clacking that night. Probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, about 1 a.m. I heard that, and I just rolled over, went back to sleep, and then at 3, then they come back again and started rubbing on the tent again. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's lots of people here to go camping, and they have different things that happen and go on, and we have some relatives that live way out in the middle of nowhere, and one of them had something looking in the window of their house. Well, there's this big muddy handprint on the outside of the house, and I got some pictures of it. I'll send it to you guys. I forgot about that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. I got a question for Will and Chris and Bill, all of us. We got a listener who is a big fan of the show. And this kind of ties in with some discussion we had a little bit earlier. And this person wants to know if certain colored clothing, could that possibly be a trigger for these creatures? And I'm actually going to edit that a little bit and say specifically bright colored clothing. Will, Chris, Bill, what are your thoughts on that? Could that be a trigger for these creatures?
It could be, sure.
I believe so too, because like I said, those girls were wearing bright pink, and the guy that was missing, I think he was wearing bright orange.
Yeah, my
okay, so maybe wearing subdued colors would be a smart thing to do if you're in there.
Yeah, my papa and everybody up and down through here always told me if I was going to be in the woods, make sure I was wearing camo or darker colors. And even when I'd go hunting and have to wear orange, I would get to my hunting spot and I'd take that vest off.
Yeah. Well, I would
gotcha.
think that
Bill, you were about to jump in with something.
Yeah. I think that the orange would actually represent a hunter, and if they had a bad experience with a hunter, let's say somebody shot at them, I would assume that they would relate that with something bad. But I'm not a researcher, so I have no idea.
No, but that's actually a good point because I think these things have long memories, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know this, but I would say I wouldn't be surprised if they have a type of communication amongst themselves where they could communicate that hunters are either a threat to them or a competition for a food source. I think they have an interest in hunting, in the hunters when they come out, because nothing else, they take the food.
Hey, Tom.
Oh, they do.
Here's a thought, fellas. Of all the people that are out and about and may have interactions with these things, the hunters are the ones that are armed. And if they've taken shots at these things, like you said, they do have long memories. That's a person associated with the colors because they have to wear bright colors, and that could be a direct correlation to behaviors to particular bright colors. In their minds, they may think every time, regardless if it's a hunter or not, if they're wearing bright colors, like Chris, you mentioned the gals who were wearing the bright pink, right. That could trigger an adverse response in them because of that, long association with hunters and being shot at possibly.
Right. That's that was what I was thinking. That's what I've always thought too.
Yeah, it'd be a threat assessment, and they would view that as a threat because that's happened in the past. And I have no doubt whatsoever that, from what I've learned about this, that those things communicate, because all of the tribes across North America and actually around the world all claim that these things communicate with one another. They have their own language. A lot of the tribes actually had interactions with them before all the white people came to this country. And who am I to question what they tell me? That's just how I see it. And I think that if there's anybody out there that's an expert on this stuff, it's probably the different tribes that had interactions with them. And my personal opinion is, I think actually the Marg Pearce up in Idaho would be the absolute ones that would have the most information about this. Those are my 2 cents.
Yeah. Hey, let me jump in here and ask a question too. Have you guys noticed like a different season, not just necessarily calendar year, but maybe just a season that these creatures that you seem to hear more activity about?
Well, where I'm at, I'm a little bit further north than what Chris is, and here you can just about, if people will tell what they've seen, you can just about follow the pattern of where they're going and moving through based upon what's coming in bloom in the spring.
Right.
And the same way that in the fall, when the leaves start changing, you get up in the New England area and up in the New York State, and as the leaves start changing and things start falling off the trees, your sightings increase and they start like heading south. And that's just some of the stuff that I've picked up on from reading a lot of the things that I've read. And what I like to do is I like to go out and find and actually read people's reports, because you can really learn a lot from that rather than some of these so-called researchers throwing their 2 cents in, because the majority of them, from what I've seen, they don't actually go out into the woods and do a whole lot. If they get more than 100 yards from their car, that's a major accomplishment.
Exactly.
I agree with you there, Bill. Most of the time, our activity is mostly during spring. There was one winter back several years back. It was real cold here, and we did have a lot of activity around here because there wasn't nothing to eat. And like I say, it was bitter cold, and so.
Yeah, I could agree. And they'll follow like what the deer are doing. I know in my neighborhood, when these things are in the area, we actually have deer bed down in our backyard. And I'm not talking 2 or 3 of them. I'm talking a small herd of a dozen will literally bed down in ours and some of our neighbors' backyards.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Yes, I have video.
Yeah. That happens here too.
Yeah.
Sure does.
Yes. Because they feel protected. And I've actually read reports where these hunters, they'll be out hunting, and I'm sure it goes on where Chris lives too. Gotta be in a tree stand, and they'll see this deer just come running, and it'll stop at the bottom of the deer stand where the hunter is and lay down. And then, within 30 seconds, one of these creatures comes out and has been chasing the thing. And the deer would rather be under the hunter than continue running with this thing chasing it.
Right. My cousin's an avid hunter. I mean, an avid hunter, and he's told me that bunches of times. He's had deer coming, and he's had as many as 4 deer coming bed down right under his stand. Yeah.
4? Oh my
4.
God. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
And he said he knew that they probably knew he was there because the scent. He hadn't been to the stand no time.
Right. And how's that old saying go? The enemy of my enemy is my
My
friend.
friend, yep.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Will, we've discussed this in the past that when during hunting season or when these creatures are about, deer will move to different elevations. The elk out here on the west, we have a lot of elk, and they will actually, like you said, bunch up in people's yards. I've taken pictures of them where we were up in the higher elevations where we had just run into some fresh tracks, and then we came down to the much lower elevations where there's some of the population areas, and all of a sudden we'd see deer in the just walking nonchalantly across the road up in people's yards, and huge herds of elk. If somebody has a large yard or maybe a little pasture, you count 40 or 50 elk in that thing.
Yeah. My buddies and I joke about it all the time near the town of Ashford, where we used to go camping all the time. You knew when it was within a day or two of hunting season beginning because all the animals were hanging right next to the town, the pastures that border it. This is at the Nisqually entrance of Mount Rainier. So, and I've interviewed lots of people that have, had situations where they encountered a Sasquatch, and a lot of times it was in conjunction with a deer, and the deer would run right up within touching distance of the person, and this is, with the Sasquatch screaming and pursuing the animal.
Mm-hmm. Me and Hunter one night was riding up the creek, and we was coming back down the lower part down there. There was a doe come out of nowhere, and she got beside the Jeep, and she was trotting down through there right beside us as we was going down. I mean, just she was on the road trotting, so I thought that was pretty strange.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in this area that have had the deer just sort of migrate to either to their yards or where they're at, and farmers they'll have the deer mingling with the cattle, and we haven't had any serious issues that I've heard of in the area with any of those creatures bothering any cattle or anything.
Right.
But there are deer found that have been ripped in half, and I know a guy here that shot a deer in bow season. In bow season here, you don't have to wear the bright orange. You can camo it up or ghillie suit, whatever.
Right.
And when you're out there, a lot of the guys are very camoed. This guy shot a deer from his tree stand, and he gave it about 10-15 minutes to run itself out and die. He comes down to the tree stand. He could see where the deer had fallen in a little bit of a ravine. The time he comes out of the tree stand, gets down there, there's a massive blood spot on the ground, and the deer's gone. Just gone.
My cousin's had that happen. Yeah, my cousins had that, and behind the house too. We used to hunt back here. We'd hunted every year, and for the past 2 years, you're lucky to find a deer dropping up there now. I mean,
oh yeah,
Well,
we were out driving around one day. It was a really nice day in the summer, and we were in an area, and we had stopped, and we were actually looking at property, and this place was for sale. And we shut the truck off, and we were going to get out and look around. Well, we didn't hear any sounds in the woods or anything, which I didn't think too much of that because we just pulled in. all of a sudden this big rock comes flying and smacks my truck. I was like, what was that? This thing was about the size of a baseball and put a dent in it. I was like, who in that crap's throwing stuff at my truck? And then the smell came on. And I was like, we need to go.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah,
I'm going to jump in with a question on that. And this is for you guys, but also for Will. Will, there tends to be an escalation, where the creatures will start with little pine cones or maybe little pebbles, and then they go to bigger rocks, and sometimes they go up to stuff as big as a grapefruit or larger that comes whizzing at you. Do you think, this is a rhetorical question, do you think when they go with those really big rocks, do you think that's the point where they're trying to take you out?
Yeah, they're trying to get you with those.
I think that when they start throwing things, if they really wanted to kill you, they could, because my understanding is that's basically how they hunt, is they can hit a bird in flight, hit a rabbit, hit a deer, hit whatever. And I think if they really, really, really wanted to whack somebody, they could do it pretty darn easily with a rock.
Oh yeah. I've had baseball size threw at me before too, and that's when I turn around and leave.
The big difference between other animals and humans is, taking a human out is a much, much more risky business than it is killing just a regular animal out there, because, I'm sure they know that if you take a human out, there's going to be a whole bunch more come looking.
Right.
So it's not good for them. It's a very risky situation.
Yes.
Right. And that's probably why they try and run everybody out of the area rather than killing them all, because I'm sure that has happened in the past, where all of a sudden you have all these people with guns and other things, and they're end up taking them out.
Right.
I can see that.
Same reason you don't jab a stick in a hornet's nest.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, let me jump in real quick and ask you guys a question. As hunters, when, like what you just described, they will look at a deer that somebody just killed and then, take it. Do you think that they actively watch hunters, or do they just kind of take advantage of the opportunity when they see it? I mean, but do they actively, not stalk, but I mean, like, just watch hunters and their methods?
I believe around here
if somebody was in your backyard, you'd watch them. And every time anybody goes into the woods, they're in their backyards. You can bet they're watching if they're in the area.
Right.
Absolutely.
A lot of nights here too. If I have to go out to my Jeep for anything, when I step out on the porch, I know I'm being watched. I mean, that's just the feeling that you get. Yeah. Yeah.
I came home from work one day, and I had a dead bird laying on the wall beside where I parked my truck at. And don't ask me how it got there. I'm not saying one of these things did it, but it was very odd. And this bird looked like you had stuffed and mounted it. It was just laying there. And it was weird how it was placed and the condition, because its neck was busted. And I got looking at it close, and it had some feathers missing, like something may have hit it. But just how it was placed and where it was placed at led me to believe that someone had actually put it there, that it wasn't, it didn't fall out of the sky.
Right. Me and my wife's cousin found a turkey up the creek like that. He was ripped in half. But the strange part of it was the breast was gone. I mean, that's the only part of him that was gone. But he was ripped in half.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean,
strange stuff that's found.
Yeah. And it just goes to show maybe how intelligent these creatures are, that a lot of people kind of overlook. I guess for all predators, but especially these ones, they definitely watch us. They will peek in our windows and so forth. And it's just incredible, I guess, how astute they are in terms of, catching prey and everything, and just watching what's going on in their environment.
I had one night come in and at the washroom back here at the house. It's inside the house, but anyway, I went back to the washer to get some clothes out, and just glanced up at the back door, and there one was looking in on me. I mean, it scared the crap out of me, buddy.
I'm sure.
Because I don't have a back porch, and from the ground up to that window was right at probably 8 or 9 feet.
Right.
Oh,
We
man.
should tell them about the trees and stuff around your house, and them hitting your house with the stuff too.
Oh yeah, it's been about a year back or so, I guess. We had a big locust tree, and normally a locust tree, they're tough and everything. They don't fall. But we were sitting, me and my wife and Hunter was sitting in here watching TV, and the whole house shook and the lights went out. And I looked at Hunter, I said, "Daggone it!" I said, "The trees fell across the house." And it was sunny day. It hadn't rained or anything. And sure enough, it fell across the house. And Hunter went behind the house and up and around to the side of the bank and the ridge and come down to see what it looked like. And it had been pushed over. I mean, you could tell. I mean, the tree couldn't have fell any other way. I mean, it was pushed. So we went from there, and then I was mowing my dad's yard. It's just right down below me here. And there were 2 good-sized trees in the yard because I mow down there all the time. And it seemed like every time I mow, something happens. I mean, I don't guess they like the sound of the lawnmower. But anyway, 2 trees were down there. And then me and Hunter walked up on the hill just to look around, and there was a big pine tree. I mean, it's pretty decent. I mean, it maybe 2 or 3 foot around, and it had fell uphill. We hadn't had any wind, and it was the only tree down. And how in the world does a tree fall uphill?
Wow. And Chris, let me just ask you: did any of the neighbors? I mean, did any neighbors see that or had any activity in that area?
No. See, I live across the creek from them, and the only activity they get is if they cross the creek and walk through their yard. And 9 times out of 10, they take the ridge line down across the highway, to get where they need to go.
Right.
So, unless they've got chickens or something, and then they'll have a few chickens missing here and there. But
Yeah. No, that's a great point, because it shows that these creatures, they'll do things that are not going to be found out a lot of times by a lot of other people. So that's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why they did that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hunter was scratching her head. She said, "How'd that tree fall?" She said, it fell uphill. I said,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you think about it. How does a tree fall uphill, right?
Yeah.
But it's just crazy.
It does it with assistance, right?
That's exactly right. And it was good and green too. It wasn't a dead tree. I mean, it had failed.
So that was an assisted suicide by the tree.
Yeah. And I hunted up there a couple years back, and had just come out, and I ate some dinner and stuff, and went back, or lunch, went back and looked, and there was a big hemlock. I mean, a big hemlock. That sucker was bigger than the one that fell, and it had fell and was across the darn path up there, but it fell uphill, and it was the only tree there, and I'd just been up there. So how in the world?
The thing about those hemlocks is they're a very fibrous tree.
Yes, they are.
You don't really, at least I don't. You just don't see those things toppled that much.
Mm-hmm. And
they're very resistant.
Talking about hunting too, me and Hunter was up there, and I was zeroing a 22 in just for a plinkster. And it was getting dusk dark. That's when Pee Wee was with me, and we were shooting. And it, like I say, it's getting dusk dark. And Pee Wee, he just stopped what he was doing, and the hair raised up on his back, and he started growling. And something come walking from the logging road. You could hear it walking. He walked down the logging road and took a left and was going to try to flank us. And I shot some more. I didn't stop it. It just kept coming. And there ain't nobody in there, because I texted my neighbor and asked him if it was him. He said no. He said he was in town, you know. And Hunter said, "Reckon we better get out of here." I said, "Yeah, we better go." And to this day, you know, I'm pretty sure that was one. I guess it figured maybe I had shot something and maybe it come steal it or something, you know. But it just goes to show the shooting and going on. It didn't scare it, you know.
You should tell them about when they surrounded your Jeep when you were trying to turn around.
Oh, yeah. I just got in again from, I think I'd been to Massachusetts this time. It was 2:30 in the morning, and it was snowing. The snow, maybe a skift on the ground. And I was up at the end. I went ahead and parked my Jeep and got out with my video camera and started up through there and got up to where that little fall is. Because if you cross the creek and take the trail, you'll go up Chigger Branch, but you can walk on the other side of the creek and there's a little fall there. It only runs whenever it's raining. But I sat there and I heard something, and I caught a smell, and I heard something coming. So I just started backing up. He was coming straight toward me. And then I heard something making some noise across the creek, and I shined my light over there. And there was one, he was squatted down. It was rubbing the side of the tree looking at me. And you could forget about the video camera. I mean, I forgot about the video. You know, crap on that. And I just backed all the way back down. And they just kept coming. And I got down to where I could see the Jeep, and I shined my light over there. And one was standing next to my Jeep playing with my antenna, backwards and forwards. And I thought, how in the world am I going to get out of here now? I mean, I said, this was stupid. You know, I wasn't even thinking. And I finally just eased on. I mean, because there's two coming towards me, and they kept walking. And that one was standing there. I thought, well, crap, I'll just take that chance, you know. And I got all the way to the Jeep and opened the door and got inside. And then he just looked at me and just walked up the ridge. And you can better believe I got out there. I got out as quick as I could.
So you saw this thing messing with the antenna on your rig?
Yeah, on my Jeep.
Wow. How big was this?
He was probably about 7 foot tall. And he was brown with black splotches in him. Perfect camo.
And you didn't yell at him to knock it off or anything?
But you know, man, I couldn't talk.
See, we have a ton of activity in the Appalachian Mountains, but people here don't really come forward and tell a lot about what they see. Right. And depending upon what area you're in, they're all known by different names. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of different names for them in different areas. Some of the Amish that live in our area call them haints. Mm-hmm. And
wait, what do they call them?
South you get, they call it a haint, which is technically like a ghost. Yeah, a haint. And
okay.
When you get closer to the south, they call them boogers. And that's where the term the boogeyman came from.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're putting a light up in your yard, if you're putting a light up in your yard in the south, you call the power company and tell them you want a booger light.
Booger light,
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. He used to call them that, and he's called them Wild Man and Hairy Man.
Let me ask you this. You said, so people hold on to that information. They'll see it, but they don't really talk about it.
Right.
And I'm assuming that's, the obvious reason would be, they don't want ridicule. Do you Do you think a day is coming when that will no longer be the case? And
I believe
perhaps it'll be more acceptable.
I believe it will.
I think that they're slowly trying to break the public in. That's why
Mm-hmm.
you see all these TV shows.
Right.
The subject in like the 1970s was sort of a taboo subject. Today, you got Jack Link's jerky with the
Right.
Sasquatch, and you have all kinds of different stuff out there.
Progressive
And
insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
Daryl. That's
They're trying-
Daryl.
Yeah, they're right, and they're slowly breaking people in, I believe, and making it more of a mainstream subject. And just like that TV show with those idiots running around the woods, beating on trees and doing all the stuff that they do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna throw something into this that.
You're talking about the show that shall remain nameless, right?
Yeah, well, and the subject of them beating on trees.
Mm-hmm.
I've known several people who have witnessed these things, and they're not beating on a tree. They're making a clucking type sound with their mouth
Tongue
because
pops.
Yep.
the sound is the same. I don't care what part of the country you're in.
Right.
It's the same exact popping sound.
Mm-hmm.
And if something that big took a stick and hit a tree with it, they'd break the stick.
Yeah.
And you would find where it peeled the bark off of whatever tree it was hitting.
Mm-hmm.
And they just don't find that anywhere, ever.
Right.
But I've known of people who have said that they've seen these things make that sound with their mouth. And there's been reports that I've even read where these people say the same thing. They watched them put their hands up to their mouth to sort of like make a funnel, and they make this sound, and it sounds just like a stick hitting a tree. But anybody that's ever heard it, they could hear it on the East Coast, they could hear it on the West Coast, they could hear it in Alaska, they could hear it in the desert, and it sounds exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. If they would just
I kind of believe them.
If they would just go to the woods, turn their light off, and sit down in a good place, I guarantee they'd find him.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Fellas, I hate to say it, but we're just about out of time.
Hey, Chris, can I just ask one question? Because it sounds like Pee-wee was like it and is maybe a great dog and everything, but I was just curious as to what breed he is, and maybe can you comment on to like if you ever had any other dogs before? Had they ever had the same experiences or intuitions as what Pee-wee did with these creatures?
Yeah, well, Pee-wee was a Yorkie, and he wasn't afraid of anything. I'll just be honest with you. He wasn't afraid of anything, and he's been there with me when they've been out there. He would come to my side, and he would sit there, and he would follow me everywhere I went, and he'd make those low growl sounds. Daisy, she was a hunting dog. The difference is, whenever she encountered him, she was on the porch.
Yeah.
But Pee-wee wasn't afraid of anything. Nothing.
Yeah. Oh, he sounds like a great dog, and I know that Will can comment on this too. That Willie, his collie, was also a great dog. That just was kind of flabbergasted when he saw these creatures in the woods. So
he could pick up on them whenever I couldn't. A lot of times, if he knew they were there and he would be in front of me, he would come out and he would jump up on my leg and start barking. And I knew then that we needed to stop and turn around and go the opposite way. So,
fellas, we're going to wrap it up here. Bill, Chris, thanks, guys. Great discussion, great interview. We got to have you back for a discussion again. There's lots of topics out there that I'd like to get you guys' opinions on.
I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creek Devil. If you or anyone you know has had an encounter with these creatures, please contact us at williamjevning@yahoo.com That's William, Jevning, @yahoo.com. All communication is confidential. Join us for another program next week. And until then, keep your eyes open out there.